Bonjour à tous et à toutes. I'm Martha Crago. I'm the Vice Principal of Research and Innovation at this great university. And I want to begin with a personal acknowledgement to Indigenous people. I worked for a number of years with people who are from the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg nations, the Ishtu Cree, and the Inuit of northern Quebec. And needless to say, I would not be with you in this position tonight if I had not learned many, many, many things from them and have them guide me through research to represent them and bring some stories out to the world. So I have a special commitment to them, and I want to acknowledge them and all the Indigenous people of this country. And we are on land that belong to Indigenous people. C'est une grande joie pour moi d'accueillir les lauréats et je tiens à souhaiter tout particulièrement et chaleureusement la bienvenue à leurs invités. Une équipe loyale qui soutient chaque chercheur, les confrères chercheurs, les collègues, les étudiants, les stagiaires, les proches, et mentors. This is a very special night. It's a special night because it makes for community. We see people we haven't seen in a long, long time. And it's been more than 2 years that we had to do this event at a distance. And so it's an extremely special pleasure this year to be here and to be with people who really embody the excellence of this university. The 97 researchers that are honored here tonight represent a whole variety of areas of expertise. They've achieved national and international success. They've demonstrated ingenuity, creativity, innovation, and perseverance. And we're really inspired by your examples, so bravo. We have an exciting ceremony planned for you. Shortly, we'll have a prize-winning panel with us who will take stage for a discussion of the future of research. But first, it's my real pleasure to welcome the Principal and Vice Chancellor, Professor Suzanne Fortier, to the stage to offer her congratulations to you.
Merci Martha, et c'est vraiment quel plaisir d'être ensemble ce soir pour vous offrir nos félicitations, to congratulate you in person. So let's enjoy this moment. It's really special after too many years, too many months certainly, of not being able to be together. What is extraordinary also is to see that even despite this terrible period we went through with the pandemics, people kept doing their work, they kept being engaged in very, very exciting research program, and of course, they were celebrated worldwide for their achievements and bringing great light to our own universities. So I always say, votre travail, c'est ce qui fait rayonner McGill à travers le monde. We celebrate you and we thank you because you're contributing to making our community one that is appreciated and admired around the world. Comme Martha l'a dit, we all know that for every researcher here, there's a whole group of people around them, people who are part of their personal lives, their professional lives, their students, colleagues, family members, little ones who need love and attention. This is what we see around every researcher. And it is really fantastic that they get the help from all these people. They get the support. They get the enthusiasm from all these people that help them pursue their work and have the resilience to continue to pursue their work. So we celebrate them too. All of you who are there with the people we're honoring tonight, you also deserve big, big thanks. Vous savez, il y a 3 mots qui me viennent à la tête. There may be many more, but I'll only mention 3. Excellence, aspiration, and perseverance. Of course, that drive that we know is in us as human beings, but particularly in you, our honorees this evening, to strive to be the best, to strive for excellence, to strive to go into places that other people haven't gone to. And advanced knowledge is something we are celebrating. Aspiration, I think we know that for many of you, it's not just about advancing the knowledge, it's about seeing that knowledge being used and being used to help the whole planet advance. And finally, resilience. I don't know if there's a researcher here in the room. If there is, maybe I'd like to talk to them, who's never faced any moment where it was disappointing. You know, you have this great hypothesis and you think that, boy, the experiment will show the world that your great hypothesis is correct, and it doesn't. And you have, you're doing your research and you've written this beautiful article, you send it to a journal or a book, and you get the review sometimes. It's not what you were hoping for. We feel, I think, as people who are going there at the leading edge, we often find those disappointments. Yes, it's enough to cry sometimes, you know, but the fact is that we have a moment where we may feel a little bit down, but we get up in the morning and we do it again because we know it's important. So I want to celebrate that also, that resilience that you all have. I have a favor to ask, though. You know, officially, it's the last time I'll be here, invited by Marta to deliver a very short speech to you. Can you convince her to keep inviting me, not to say anything, just to be among the people who will cheer you forever? Merci beaucoup.
Suzanne, you had a great idea. And we will certainly invite you, and it will be our pleasure, and the pleasure of everyone who will be at events like this, to have you with us. So now I'm going to invite 3 panelists to come up to the stage, and I have the pleasure of moderating a panel on the discussion of the future of research with these 3 distinguished McGill colleagues. So come on up. You to our panelists. Immediately to my left is Morag Park, who is a professor in the departments of a lot of departments here: oncology, biochemistry, medicine, and the director of the Rosalind and Morris Goodman Cancer Center. In 2021, she was the recipient of the Ordre national de Québec, la plus haute distinction décernée par le gouvernement de Québec. She was also the recipient of the Prix Armand Frappier from Les Prix de Québec. And then, immediately to her left, we have Jaswinder Singh, an associate professor in the Department of Plant Science and an associate member of the Beeler School of Environment. And in 2021, he was made a fellow of the Canadian Society of Agronomy. And finally, there's Jennifer Welsh, who's a professor in the Department of Political Science and the Max Bell School of Public Policy. She's a Canada 150 Research Chair in Global Governance and Security and a director at of the Center for International Peace and Security Studies. And in 2021, she was made a member of the American Academy of Arts and Science. So congratulations to the 3 of you. Now, to frame tonight's panel discussion, I have to give you a brief overview of something that we call the Bicentennial Digital Time Capsule Project. This is an initiative that was led by people in my office, and I determined tonight the person who came up with it was Brett Hooten. So I'm very proud of this project. As we approached our landmark 200th birthday or anniversary, we had 55 of McGill's top researchers answer the question, what will be the biggest change in your field over the next 25 years, the next quarter of a century? And their responses were featured in a one-of-a-kind legacy collection of short videos called the Bicentennial Digital Time Capsule, which we launched in March of 2021. But tonight, we can view each of our panelists' time capsules, and I want to dig a little deeper into their thoughts about the future of research in their fields. So following our discussion, we're going to have a moment here where the digital time capsule will be ceremonially sealed to be revealed in batches of 5 at homecoming for the next 10 years. So, Susan, you'll want to come to homecoming too every year. All right. So to kick off the discussion, let's look at Professor Park's time capsule.
My name is Morag Park. I'm a professor in the departments of oncology, biochemistry, and medicine. I hold the Diane and Sal Guerrera Chair in Cancer Genomics, and I'm the director of the Goodman Cancer Institute. My research in the last 30 years has been focused on understanding cancer. The revolution in molecular biology identified cancer-causing genes and led to the development of new therapies that target those genes in cancer. Sequencing of the human genome and new genomic technologies have identified the complexity of changes in cancer and how they respond to therapies. And new genomic tests are now in the clinic to identify these changes in human cancers. We now use these approaches in what we call precision medicine, such that cancer patients are no longer treated by a one-size-fits-all, and therapies are now targeted to the changes in each person's cancer. We now understand that our immune system can fight cancer, and mechanisms to augment our immune system called immunotherapies are now providing durable cures to cancers that were previously untreatable. Over the next 25 years, we will continue to see curiosity-driven research identify, understand the unknown. We will have more focus on prevention. We now know that obesity, which changes our metabolic health and immune health, is the second leading cause of preventable cancer deaths. We will understand better how changes in cancer cells' metabolic health, which will give rise to new and unpredicted drugs. Also, we will monitor our own metabolic and immune health as a population with a focus on prevention. Technologies will drive changes in the clinic. We will have population-based screening for early detection. We will have real-time diagnostics, in-home measuring by different apps, and artificial intelligence will use big data to design the therapeutic strategies for different patients for their cancer. We will develop new vaccines to cancer using the RNA technology for vaccine development that has been used for COVID-19. Over the next 25 years, our goals are to both cure cancer, but also to make cancer a manageable disease that people can live with.
Okay, well, that's an inspiring and a rewarding kind of view of what the future might bring. So McGill is unique in Canada for its expertise in medicine, genomics, and RNA research. So my question to you is, how are McGill researchers driving the changes that you predict? And what more do you think we can do to help bring about that future that's defined by prevention, personalization, and participation in healthcare?
So I think that's an important question, Martha. I have to confess I have not watched my time capsule, so this was a first for me. I hate watching these things. We have to recognize the impact of McGill researchers and their contribution to this field. I think we don't fully realize the legacy that McGill research has contributed to our understanding of cancer and the changes that we expect now in the clinic. We expect to be treated for our cancer, for our disease. We expect to be diagnosed. This is based on often 30 years of fundamental research, discoveries that were made by young researchers, people like myself, who's no longer a young researcher. But at that time, we didn't understand the importance of these discoveries. And what's so important is that we're still recruiting young researchers today to McGill who are making those discoveries. And I think they're much more savvy than we were. They're much better clued in. They understand the impact of their research. And they're much better integrated in the community, in a multidisciplinary community. We're no longer working in our lab, just doing our thing, because that's what we did 30 years ago when I started my lab. These young researchers are working in teams, they're working with clinicians, they're working with mathematicians, they're working with bioengineers, chemical engineers, and everyone at the table recognizes the importance of one another. And that gives you goosebumps, because it really means we're changing how we do research. We're integrating many opinions, many thought processes in how to even think about the questions. What are the unanswered questions? How do we know what these are? And for most of us, we actually can't predict them. I think in medicine and clinically, we can identify unmet clinical needs. But sometimes in research, we have to be told what these are. We can imagine what these are, but we actually want to be told. And I would say the young researchers of today, those people that we're recruiting to McGill, that we can recruit to McGill because we have excellence at McGill, they understand this. And I would advocate to all of us to enable the building and the bringing together of multidisciplinary teams, recognizing the importance of everybody in the room and allowing each of us or each of them to grow into their full potential. And I really feel that we can do this.
Great. Okay.
Long answer.
It's a good answer, though. Now we're going to watch the time capsule of Jaswinder.
My name is Jaswinder Singh. I am a professor in the Department of Plant Science, McGill University. We are at the tipping point where our agriculture is not environmentally sustainable. How do we lead the fight for food security, especially in the changing scenario of climate? And I predict the future is smart agriculture. What is stopping us to make oils, proteins, and carbohydrates in the petri dishes? If we can synthesize meat from muscle stem cells, then we are not far from this kind of smart agriculture production. I'm envisioning that genomic and genetic understanding we have developed in the last few decades will become a core data set for the smart tools such as machine learning and artificial intelligence. The future generation of plant varieties which are nutritionally balanced and high yielding will come from these smart tools, because we can mine, create, and target this precious genetic variation efficiently and precisely. Another breakthrough may be the emergence of novel photosynthesis mechanisms. The precise genetic manipulation of photosynthetic machinery will generate a lot of buzz. And I also believe that people will start paying a lot more attention to the plant nutrition, especially the phosphorus. Eventually, smart phosphate remedies will appear. So that's where I believe the beauty of plant research will shine. As heroes may learn tricks from their enemies and inherit strength from the nature and their ancestors, so should we. Plant scientists learn tricks from the wild species and biological adversaries of crop plants, and wondering what makes them resilient against all odds. What's their chemistry? And what's in their genes? And I believe tweaking and fine-tuning of genetic code to enhance productivity and to introduce resilience will be a lot more common in future. To me, this is the future, and with smart tools, we will have bright, healthy, and fulfilling future for all.
I think we're getting a definitely positive vibe about the future here, which is really nice to hear, because the present has got some of its own ups and downs right now. So, this is again another story of genomics and genetics and their importance in fields that are anything from health to agriculture, and precision medicine and precision agriculture. So you talked about smart tools, but then you also talked about things that we learn from the diversity of wild species, and how do you put these two pieces together?
Thank you very much for asking this very important question, actually. So actually in my lab, we are also integrating conventional and modern tools, which is the need of the day. And basically, this question has two components. One is the smart tools, another is the wild species. So basically, we want to integrate them together. So first of all, we need to establish what those smart tools are in genetics. There are so many different strides happen. There's so many great tools emerged. But one of the key genetic tool, which is recently emerged, is CRISPR-Cas-based gene editing, by which we can precisely and accurately edit any gene in any given genome. So what a big opportunity we have. So this is a part of the smart tool. But if you talk about the wild species, as I said, we learn tricks from them. They are very important for us. Let me give you a very specific example. Wheat is a cereal crop, one of the most important cereal crop, which is a staple food for 35% of the population. But it's plagued by many diseases and also abiotic stresses. And one can I mention, there are rust disease, which is so damaging that if we do not manage it, we may not have any crop. So then how can we feed the world? So basically, when you go back to the wild species or primitive relatives, and based on the sequencing platform or sequencing information, if you compare resistant and susceptible genes, I can give you one example where there's only difference of 2 amino acids. We have an opportunity using these smart genetic tools of gene editing, and we can easily manipulate those amino acids and make them resilient, and our crops will be resistant to biotic, same way to the abiotic stresses. So,
really interesting. This is great. So, what's fascinating to me, and I guess it takes back to what you're saying about multidisciplinarity, is people are talking about the same things in different fields and using the same kinds of tools. So we do have a really interesting future with a set of future tools that, we had not thought about even 5 years ago. So Jennifer, I have to say, your time has come, because we want to watch your time capsule and figure out what you can tell us about some of the present day predicaments between nations.
My name is Jennifer Welsh. I'm a professor of global governance and security at the Max Bell School of Public Policy and the Department of Political Science. I'm also the director of the Center for International Peace and Security Studies at McGill. The biggest change in the next 25 years in my field will be the shape of the multilateral institutions that we have to govern various areas of the globe, whether we think of international peace and security, trade, or the environment. We've been living for the last 70, 75 years under a system that was designed after the Second World War by the victors of the Second World War, and we've been lumbering along adapting that system. But in 25 years, all of the changes pushing at that system are going to shift that structure profoundly. First and foremost, we have a number of states who are much more important and powerful today than the Western and European states that dominated in 1945. So our global institutions are going to be dominated by states like China, by India, and others. But secondly, all the advances in technology, whether we think of information technology, computing capacity, or analytical capacity like artificial intelligence, are going to fundamentally change the way we try to govern cooperation in all of those spaces. When we look at the multilateral system 25 years from now, it's going to look very different from the way it looks today as a result of power shifts and as a result of technological change. We can't even imagine, in some senses, what will replace what we have now. Some of what we will see might be just reform of the existing order, but I predict there'll be fundamentally new structures to take their place.
Okay. All right. I think we've all had the sobering last month or more, a few months now, of watching what's happened with the shifting of power following the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. And your expertise is critical to this situation. So would you say that some of your predictions that you would have predicted about different power shifts have come true, or did it surprise you? And when you think about this, how do we pave a way in the future for a more peaceful future with more cooperation?
Yes, I feel like the pessimist in the room. It was amazing listening to my two previous colleagues, and I'll answer your question by talking about two areas of global governance. One, the governance of global health, and the other, peace and security. And I recorded that time capsule in July of 2020, so the pandemic had just started. And I think one of the fascinating things we saw during the course of the pandemic was that scientists engaged in incredible forms of cooperation below the state. I don't know your field, but everything I've been told about pharmaceutical possibilities, about scientists were communicating constantly in very creative ways to bring us a vaccine in an incredibly short period of time, but also other treatments. But yet, if you're a political scientist and you watched what governments did in terms of international cooperations, we went backwards. We saw beggar thy neighbor policies, trade restrictions on very simple exports of PPE, the failure to share vaccines. We returned to my nation first. And so I think what's interesting when I talk about the future of global governance, what I'm watching at the moment is there's really two tracks in global health. We're seeing, and it's ongoing, in fact, at the moment, diplomats are gathered in Geneva at the World Health Assembly, starting a process which is going to be highly contentious and difficult to try to reform the WHO and the intergovernmental system we have for pandemic preparedness and response. But alongside that, we have a variety of actors. Some of them are foundations, some of them are private companies, some of them are national governments trying to create a new surveillance system for infectious disease, trying to create a different form of governance for pandemic preparedness and response. So we've got two tracks. And that first track is important because it's inclusive. All member states in our world are involved in that process. But the outcome of it is very uncertain, and I have to say I'm pessimistic that we will get a so-called pandemic treaty. But the second track I discussed may produce forms of governance, not necessarily an international organization. So, and there I get optimistic. I think about the possibilities of what we could create. In peace and security, when you ask some of my predictions, I think we do see part of the power shift. So I interpret the war in Ukraine as part of a wider set of challenges to the West, that is ultimately led by China, but in this instance was initiated by Russia. So there's no accident that Vladimir Putin went to Beijing during the Olympics to discuss his potential move into Ukraine. I don't think there is a strong alliance between Russia and China, but I think there is an agreement in this war that is significant. And ultimately, depending on how the war transpires, Russia could end up being incredibly dependent on China in the future. But I think the war also tells us something else, and that is going to be the subject of my next book. Which is, and the title of that book is Politics Matters, right? Political leadership matters. So there were a number of people in my field until the 11th hour saying, he's never going to invade Ukraine. The cost benefit, this is a strategic blunder. Political leadership matters profoundly. We saw it with Brexit. We see it with this war, that an individual and the coterie around him made a very bold decision and made a disruptive decision. This is I think of this war as the great disruption. Russia trying to enhance its power, disrupting our global order. And just as a final comment, Martha, we see precisely what I talked about in the time capsule, that some of our post-1945 institutions, the UN Security Council, what has it done in this crisis? It has been a forum for mutual recrimination, for name-calling, not as a forum in which the great powers try to manage threats to peace and security. So we're going to need to find alternatives, even if they don't look the way some of our institutions have looked in the past. But some institutions have done okay. NATO is looking stronger than we could have imagined a year ago. And again, tipping points, we've talked about this evening. I wouldn't have thought a year ago that Finland and Sweden would be joining NATO. But as a result of politics and political decisions, here's where we are.
So, boy, there you go. Actually, what I started to think of when you were talking, Professor Welsh, was how many researchers we came to meet during COVID on TV, on the radio, how science took a place of importance. And listening to this, I thought, you know, we need a few more commentaries on this war for to help us understand what's really going on here and what are the things at play. Because it's as upsetting as parched fields, sick people. It's a world that's very complicated, and we need the excellence of the minds in this room trained on the kinds of problems that we have. But I'm going to bring you back from the future for a minute to something kind of, in a sense, mundane but sort of interesting. So you and the other 94 award winners in this room, what is the importance of an award? Why societally do we give these out, and what has it meant to you? And what does it promote in people? So to all three of you, briefly tell us what you think an award means. The awards you got this year, what did they mean to you?
Well, I can start since I'm sitting here. For me, what it meant to me is obviously recognition of a lifelong work, but perhaps more importantly, as a Scottish person in Quebec, both of my awards were from Quebec this year, and it meant a lot to me to be recognized in Quebec, to be recognized for being part of Quebec, hopefully for being integrated in Quebec. And this was very important, because I think it is important that we contribute to our local environment and become part of our local environment. What I would stress, though, is the importance of recognizing the next generation in awards. And I think we're very generous about giving awards to the ancients, and I'll put myself in that category. And I feel so strongly that we must stress the importance of awards and recognition for our young researchers at McGill, but across Canada, and their contributions, because they're all making contributions, and they're important too.
Yes, you are aware that we need motivation, recognition, inspiration, encouragements. So this is really important. After all, we are human beings, right? So basically, for me, actually, it is a really humbling experience getting these kind of awards. It provides you momentum. It gives you a sense that you are on the right track, and inspire you that we want to do something more. We want to do, we want to do other innovations for the benefit of the community. But I also agree that it is really important that youngsters must be encouraged. We need well done. So that's how I feel, that the same way as we, in our society, we are bringing up the kids and we say, oh, well done, you did great job. So I think it matters so much, in my view. Yeah.
Well done. Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you for asking the question. I think for me it's two things. We work slightly differently as social scientists. I do work collaboratively, but the generalization still holds that we work more independently. And so I think awards are a way for us to sit back and reflect on our work and know that actually peers did notice because we're not necessarily working in a lab with a group. So it's very nice to have this sense that your peers acknowledged your great work. I think the other is that it gives you a moment, and the principal talked about this, to discuss what you do and celebrate what you do with those close to you in your family, your children, your siblings, your partner, and just to sit back because they so often support you in invisible ways. And so for me, and especially post-COVID, I'm very happy to have my children here and my husband here this evening because we haven't had the chance to celebrate for a very long time. So it meant a lot to me that you invited them as well as me.
So thank you all three very much. This was a great discussion and a great discussion to share with everybody. So as I mentioned at the outset of the panel, tonight we seal the bicentennial digital time capsule. And thankfully, we won't have long to wait for the first 5 new predictions for the future because they will happen at homecoming in the fall. So in this next video, you're going to get a glimpse of some of the rich insights, like teasing little tidbits of what they've got in their time capsules. And you'll see some wonderful faces there from our community. But we do have to wait the next 25 years to determine the accuracy of these predictions. But until then, it's time to seal the vault.
I've been asked to speak for 2 minutes on what will be the biggest change or discovery in my field in the next 25 years.
Biggest revolution in the next 25 years.
The biggest discovery I think that my field will make over the next 25 years is in fact about the durability of racism.
The future brings a lot of changes and challenges to chemistry, chemical manufacturing, and research.
How the world is going to respond to all of the environmental changes that are being wrought by humans. It brings us from today to 2045. I'll be 71 years old.
I expect to see major changes in the way we deal with immigration.
I think, how are we going to treat infectious diseases?
It's a field that's been moving incredibly quickly over the last few years.
The practice and delivery of medicine is going to undergo a massive transformation of sorts.
How climate change is impacting the evolutionary trajectories of the world's species.
And some of the subject materials we work on are some of the wickedest problems that humanity is facing now.
AI will play a much more important role in education.
The elimination of the health gap for Indigenous peoples.
In genetics, everything changes each month.
In astrophysics, in the next 25 years, I think there's going to be all sorts of very interesting discoveries.
In the next 25 years in my field will be the shape of the multilateral institutions.
To hold institutions into account.
And that linguists and institutions like McGill will continue to find ways to support these ongoing efforts.
All I can tell you is it's just a wonderful community of people doing incredibly important work. So little by little, we'll let them tell us what the future will hold. So at McGill, as we look toward our third century and seal up vaults, we're committed more than ever to the kind of research and innovation to drive things forward in the world. And for the last 9 years, McGill has had a very special champion for research at its helm. My voice is cracking. So I want to take this opportunity to thank our principal and vice chancellor for her dedication to and support of McGill's research mission throughout her tenure. She says at events when her vice principals are around her that the best thing she did was to assemble a great team. But no team is assembled just by magic. It takes a leader to assemble a team. And during her time of leadership, a number of important things happened in the research world at McGill. We got the $84 million Canada First Research Excellence Fund for healthy brains, healthy lives. We took a national leadership role in the COVID period with initiatives like the Quebec Biobank, the Canadian Virus Seek data portal, the COVID-19 Immunity Task Force. We have continued to succeed as the top medical doctoral university in Canada. And it's not just this year or last year or the year before. This is it 14 years now this has happened? McGill has continued success and its transformation and transformational concept of what can happen with the Royal Victoria Hospital for a multidisciplinary, innovative research and learning in sustainability and public policy. These are really noteworthy things that have happened at the university. It's the people in this room that made them happy, but it is the leadership that set the stage for things like this to happen. So one of our reputation as one of the best universities in the world has been advanced by your wonderful leadership, Suzanne. So thank you very much. And finally, I'm really grateful to all the people of this community that work hard to nominate people, to promote them, to support the success of the laureates that we're honoring here tonight. And, prizes and awards take effort and some administrative effort, and sprinkled among you tonight are some of the wonderful people that I work with in the world of research and innovation at McGill. The staff that support your grants, your progress toward getting things, the infrastructure that you need. And we have a particular person who, as a lone powerhouse, puts these award nominations forward. Her name is Meredith Chatwin, and she works with Deborah, at this point with Deborah Titone, one of the associate vice principals in my office. And it's a remarkable job that is done, and tonight is a great demonstration of it. I also want to thank them. And I want to thank the team that's responsible for organizing an event like this. So we have Brett Hooten, who invented the time capsule thing and has been a wonderful director of communications and operations. And this great communications team that I inherited by some wonderful act of somebody, Amanda Testani, Robin Cunning, and Megan Thurston. And then we've got a great bunch of volunteers who have been helpful tonight to make this all happen. So I think we've got a good demonstration of people that are all parts of the research excellence of this university. In a few minutes, there's going to be a reception outside in the adjoining hall, and this is almost dinner-like. So if you didn't fill yourself too full before, please go and enjoy more food and more drink. And we hope you'll stay and have a chance to reconnect with people you haven't seen in a while. And then, as a reminder, we want to encourage you to celebrate our awardees by tweeting your congratulations using the hashtag Bravo2022. And as a Bravo tradition, I now want the honorees to all stand and receive a round of applause. Bravo! Okay, we have another tradition, and that is you need to stay standing because all the awardees are going to go out and have a group photo taken at the entrance to the foyer. So if you'll leave now, we can then join you and in the dining room for some more to eat. And please, everybody, stay, join us, raise a glass to these laureates. They're a wonderful group. you.